Sheesh. There it is. Just in.
Hello.
Oh, there, senor.
It's gonna be an interesting one.
You got to make sure that all the surface is nice and clean. That's why we had to call this New Wave After.
What up, everybody? It's Ted from New Wave. So you guys know what that means. It's New Wave After Dark. This week we are discussing fragging.
Yep, it's frag swap season.
Yep. So get you guys ready. We're going to do the who, what, where, when, hows of fragging and stuff of that nature.
I think we can start with why you'd frag. There's several reasons why you'd frag.
For some people,
Money.
The other one is my tank is just overgrown and it's starting to sting each other, and there
Nobody
just
says
isn't that flow in there. I know, but I like to imagine that's a thing.
Yep.
Or you got some friends in the hobby who say, hey, I want that piece once it grows out.
Yep.
So you're like,
Or you have a problem.
Yep.
So bubble algae in the middle of a colony.
oh, I
something
thought,
got
I thought
stung.
you meant like addiction problem.
Well, that too. We're all addicted, so that's fair. I mean,
Both ways.
And I always tell all my customers, like, the only way you're going to actually, I mean, you can frag and make side money, right? But the only way you're actually going to become a millionaire in this industry, fragging, is starting off as a billionaire. So just saying.
True.
True that.
Or maybe the colony is dying.
Yes,
You need to
exactly. So
frag.
Gotta
you need
propagate
to
it.
Yep.
cut it before you lose everything. So a lot of different ways and a lot of different reasons. Whatever your reason, you need the right tool for the job, depending on what you are fragging. We'll talk about that. And we'll then subdivide it a little bit to talk about fragging softies versus LPS versus SPS, because there's definitely right tools for right jobs for each one of those. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about what you do after you have a bunch of cut pieces. So dip it before you stick it. What kind of glue, all that other fun stuff.
That's dirty.
I think fragging can be a pretty fun process too. As long as you're prepared and you have all the right tools.
Yep.
You know, it can go pretty well and it can be kind of therapeutic. So,
Well, unless you're doing like hundreds of them. Like yesterday, my back hurt so bad.
yeah.
I always like to say it's one of my favorite things because you're taking big rocks and turning them into little rocks.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, 20 years ago, this wasn't a thing. Like, you had three different corals anyway. You had, GSP, and you had Zoes and a long tentacle plate coral. So I mean,
GSP.
yeah. But I mean, fragging is we frag for several different reasons at New Wave. I mean, we one of the big ones is bank tanking, what we call it, so that we can make sure that, especially special pieces, they're spread out. So if we lose one somewhere, we have a backup. So I think that's important too. So you talk about your friends want this or that. It's a good way to, if there was a power outage or something happened, an elk swing, that you can get it back.
That's a really good
Safety
point.
stock.
Yep.
Yep. So I think starting a couple of things that before you start fragging, I think having. Oh, Brendan got distracted.
We're good.
Squirrel.
Okay.
Flashing lights.
Yeah. Butterflies.
Just making sure levels are right.
There you go. Having a few pieces of equipment handy, I think, are a big deal before you ever start fragging. Whether you're using just regular frag tools or if you're using a saw, there's just some general equipment. I think having towels and having clothing that you don't care will get glue on it, because you will get
Yes.
glue on it.
Yep.
And if you have long hair or beards,
I was gonna say.
yeah, put your hair up. I've had to cut my hair out.
Yep.
Glue does not come out of your hair or your clothes. So
Or your
make
beard.
sure, or your beard.
Have you had that?
Yes, I have had that.
Yeah. So
When he eats glue.
Yep.
Also,
Not supposed to tell people about that.
also
that's
Caesar,
fantastic.
Caesar and I ran into this. Do not let your animals around glue.
That was awesome.
Oh, no, what
yes and
happened?
Oh, so we were at a client's house setting up a nice nano setup, full scale Apex and everything, and we left the glue out on the counter. Well, they had a cat,
Oh dear.
super cute fuzzy cat,
We
and
told you about this.
it started eating the glue.
Oh my gosh.
super glue.
Yeah,
Oh, that's good.
And I think Brendan
healthy.
is the one that noticed, because the cat was taking a picture or something. The cat was like,
Oh no.
and he saw
I can totally see Greg doing that. I think it would. I wonder if it would glue his mouth shut so he can chew things
Or bark as much.
or bark. There you go.
Okay.
So yeah, so leave your glue, but have a clean surface area, obviously too. We've done a lot of videos on fragging, so making sure, clean surface area, having all your different dip buckets and everything available, because once you start cutting, you're not going to want to start searching for, I need to find my glue now, or I need to find the cutter, or I need to do this, I need to do that. Just have everything. And then also do it in a well-lit area. I know a lot of people like have like their little frag dungeon, and it makes it more fun to have it in. I mean, just we have it a little kind of at the store. We have kind of baller. We have, Kessels that we're shining on our apparently the guys thought that we had a ton of extra money and extra time to hang Kessels to frag, but
It works.
if you're gonna do it, and you want, if you're gonna be doing it for long hours, by all means.
What about coral that you cannot frag?
Corals you can't. Oh, that's a good one. So before we talk tools, we'll talk about corals that you can't frag. Scullies are one of them, but actually you can now. They just take a really long time to recover. So, you'll have an ugly pie-shaped thing for a really long time. But there's a guy that gave us our friendship scully, and that was a frag a couple of years ago. And it's still not a full size, but it worked.
Yep.
So, but for the most part, I'd say don't frag scullies. I would hesitate on elegance corals, bubble corals, anything not.
I would say any of those really big, fleshy, largemouth, like really largemouth
Yep.
corals I would avoid unless you really know what you're doing.
Wall hammers.
Yep. And you're prepared for the bacterial aspect of it, because that's really what you're opening it up for. Is once you cut through that flesh, you're just giving it an open wound. And as we know, there's a lot of bacteria in a reef tank. So,
But is it a coral that you cannot frag though?
no, I would say you can frag it, but I wouldn't do it to that. I would leave that one for experts only.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you frag wellsos?
No.
Yeah, not Welsos. No,
No. So
I haven't
that's
seen.
a good one.
I haven't seen anybody attempt to do a Welso. I've seen like acanthos getting cut. I've seen the scollies
Really?
getting cut. Yep.
Oh, God.
Yep. The same guy that does the scollies, he did 3 acanthos.
That's crazy.
He did one master, like one of those tiger master ones, and like 2 other regular ones.
That-
They all look
that would
really
scare
great.
me way too much to do that.
So so there's a different way to propagate. Doug's been researching how to propagate scollies, and it's actually pretty interesting. And you cut towards the bottom, and then they'll grow a baby out the bottom, and that's how you can kind of you can take B grades and turn them into masters. I don't know a ton of information on it. Doug knows a lot more, so we could talk more about that later. But basically, you're not gonna want. Clams you can't frag a clam.
Nope.
Just so you know.
Anemone is really.
You can cut nems in half.
That's true.
But it tends to be the more expensive the coral is, especially nems or mushrooms. It seems like you cut them and they're like, I'm just gonna die anyway now.
Yep.
I'm gonna melt.
But
You
NEMS,
did too much.
It's a lot easier to just basically stress them out so they split.
Right,
That's
and
true.
that's only with bubble tips. I don't think you can't cut a carpet in half, can you?
Oh no.
Or
I don't
long
think so.
tentacles
No.
or sabays or any of those. So those can't be fragged.
Yeah, and the majority of it's bubble tips anyway. So
What about
people
rock
that-
flowers?
I don't know.
I think those you can propagate.
I think they propagate and
I think they
spawn.
they
more or
spawn.
less.
Yes, I don't think you can.
I think that's how they reproduce.
So basically, any, like Ted was saying, basically any bigger fleshy LPS, Welsos. Expert only Welsos. Anything that doesn't have a clear delineation of lines or just has one mouth, I'd stay away from.
It's going to be tough.
Yep.
So then it goes back into let's talk about the tools of the trade. I guess would it be easier to talk about fragging certain corals and then the tools to use, or would you talk about the tools?
I think there's always going to be, you're obviously always going to need coral glue.
Yep.
Instaset is one of those things. Most of the time you'll probably use it. Maybe some of the times you won't.
It's good to have though.
It's good to have on hand.
And it helps for those slimier corals.
Yeah.
Like green slimer and
Montes.
And we
even
have some
Zoas.
tips on that, on how to actually get them to adhere.
Towels for sure. And
Yep.
don't grab a nice new towel that your partner just bought. Like, get a crusty old one.
I
Are
feel
you
like-
speaking from experience?
Yeah.
Hypothetically
No,
speaking,
I have like 50 towels at home, and I'm pretty sure like 25 are just for the fish tank, and they're just like old jagged towels.
You don't have to lie. Out of the 50, it's probably 40 are for the fish tank.
fish tanks.
Yeah.
10
Well,
are for human
The
use.
10 are the ones
Yeah.
that are hidden.
Yep.
And we just bought more too. so
Yeah,
it's like-
exactly.
It's just two of you. Why you need 50?
So I think too, it's helpful to have separate containers. You can use Tupperware, Rubbermaid, whatever, having separate containers to keep, the actual corals that you're cutting, and then having, once they're cut, if you're going to be dipping them or what have you, having some just equipment that's set aside for fragging.
And of course, frag plugs that you have pre-soaked in water.
I don't do that.
Why don't you?
I don't.
Just curious.
So I just do it dry, and then I put the drop of glue on it, and then I put it in the water so it creates that skin, so it doesn't give that bubble.
Yep.
And now we're kind of getting into like the more detailed.
One.
Yeah, but I put it in there that way. I find otherwise the glue, I feel, just sloughs right off when it's wet. And it gives the same thing. So when you are actually gluing it, so you don't get that glue bubble once you put it in the water, it takes care of that. Plus, I let it set for a little bit. So when I'm doing sticks, or like yesterday, I did a whole bunch of Dunkins. So I just actually then take the coral, just rub it on there, and it automatically breaks that skin, and it's done. So nice. I actually take all those frag plugs that you soak in water, and I dry them off. I put them in front of the fan, and I dry them off, and I put my glue on it. And it's your station.
I try not to soak over weekends anymore, because I've noticed that when I come in on the week, and I'm like, oh, what happened to the container?
Well, it just depends. We soak them, and then we dry the top.
Yeah.
And then it just avoids that air, and I don't know, mine, I think it sticks too, but
I think everybody has their own little hicks and things, because I think the same philosophy where I like to do it, because I think it starts the cure on the glue right when it's wet and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just how you want to stick it.
Well,
giggity.
Oh God. So we got tools, your basic hand tools, just, if you're not using cutters. Crescent cutters, I think, are really important to have. I think having a couple different bone cutters, having
different
the
sizes.
straight, and then the crescents. I like the crescents for several reasons.
Black ones? Those work amazing.
I
think James Bauer has a pair of black ones,
ionized black bone cutters.
Yes, and they actually have like a little hook to them. So then it just really depends. If you're fragging softies, I think we could even start talking about softies. But we have a scissors that we, a sharp scissors that we use. If you're fragging zoes, I have a little a secret. I actually use it. I don't even know if they're like a little nose hair trimmer thing, or if they're an eyebrow trimmer thing. But I get them or a beard trimmer thing, but it's like a little scissors, and it works perfectly in between the mats of zoes. So I like to have that. And
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They come in the...
Yes.
I like scalpels too for zoas, when you can just cut
it's perfect. So for softies, I think those are really helpful to get in between things. And I think before we go any further, we need to talk about the one piece of equipment that everybody absolutely has to have, and that's goggles or glasses. I've gotten and gloves. I have been hospitalized twice for palytoxin poisoning. It is a real thing. Also, I've gotten palytoxin in my eye twice. And both of the times that I've gone so there's been 6 times I've gone to the ER. They make me sign a waiver that you're an idiot and why don't you follow any of your own protocol? So now, yesterday I just kind of you can make your goggles fun. You can do whatever you want to, but make sure you have eye protection and then hand protection too. If you look at my arms and my hands, I have my fish arm. It's totally ruined from scars and battle wounds and all the things. So
being in salt water 24/7.
Yep.
And that applies to more than just, zoas. Even if you're cutting sticks, like
Absolutely.
You don't want chunks flying into your eye. You don't want your hands getting cut and then getting infected. So just take the proper precautions across the board.
Yep. So gloves and eyewear are must no matter what.
I wear mine all the time.
Yeah.
Lucky built-in protection.
I think it's important too that you make sure that if you are cutting, especially since we're on the topic of softies, you're cutting zoes, you make sure no pets, no children, and that everything is cleaned and completely disposed of. Because if we actually had somebody at a frag swap once that came in late to a frag swap, and he was just in tears, and he had lost his dog that morning. He had dropped one of his frag plugs with zoes on it, and the dog ate it. One zoanthid killed his dog. So I mean, it's a real thing. I mean, is it super dangerous? Well, it is the second most poisonous substance known to man. But can it be done? Absolutely. You just got to be safe about it. When I got there's those icky, like those army green ones. Those are those pallies that really slime up. Also making sure that the water that you're using for that, empty it out, rinse it out a whole bunch of times.
Keep fresh water on hand. It's going to help you out for actually seeing what you're fragging, what size of your colony that you need to cut it down. Yep. It just helps out for everything.
So softies, so we kind of mentioned Zoes, we use scissors. You can use the coral cutters. You're just going to need to make sure when you are fragging a Zoe that you cut through the mat and not through the polyp. Because you get that brown stuff that comes out of it, that means it's dead.
Yep.
Oh, their guts.
Yep. Their guts, not their glory.
So you can use the bone cutters to cut it off the rock, but if you want to separate them even further, then I recommend, the smaller, sharper tools for those things. And then leather corals are another one.
Those are easier though.
Yep.
You can't glue them.
Nope. Do you have tricks for it? I have a few tricks to get them to attach to things.
My brother has a cool one too, so you go first.
I just use a needle and some fishing line and just literally tie it right to a chunk of rock.
Yeah. And that's, if you actually look at the leathers that we get in from maricultured, they do that with, it's like intense, thick fishing line. Obviously, this is
cheap.
Well, that and, they have bigger predators that can rip stuff off.
Yeah.
And you're not going to, it's not as easy to just reach your hand into the ocean all the time and reattach things, but that's how they do. Yeah. So a sewing kit, using that, just needle thread, you can do that, or a fishing line. My brother actually, and this is a little more labor intensive, but he took toothpicks and then the plastic toothpicks, and he glued them on top of the frag plugs, and then he took the leather and then just popped it on there.
Oh, made like a little fork pick.
Yep. And then it just grows around it, and then it doesn't really matter. Another trick of the trade that I have done is, as long as you can, I pinch it between two rocks, so that like if you're doing like the finger leathers and stuff like that, and I glue two rocks together, so that's where Instaset comes in, where you just glue the two rocks together and it holds it in place, and it'll just eventually grow onto the rock too. So, but I think when you are fragging any of the softies, after you're done fragging them, it's important to keep them in higher flow areas because they slough off that slime, that extra skin. So that's that's a pro tip.
So how do you do mushrooms? Those are the worst.
It depends. If it were a crappy $1 mushroom, you could literally like put it in a blender and make a whole bunch of them. If it's seriously, you could throw it on the floor and it would turn into 50. You can rip them off and it'll still grow back. And then you get the jawbreaker that you cut in half because you need part of a mouth, and then they both die, and then you're pissed.
Because attaching them to something, I think the best way is to put them in a basket.
Yeah,
with sand. Oh, that's a good idea.
You're never really going to, if it's not attached to something, you can't really glue a mushroom to anything. That bottom foot will just reject everything. It'll 9 slime times off. Out of 10.
Yep. So putting it in, a little basket, like Cedar saying, with some rubble, let it adhere to that. It'll take a week or two. And then once it does that, then you can glue it onto something. If you are taking them off of big chunks of rock, though, make sure you don't just cut the head off. That's not going to work. Try to have some of the rock. You can cut a little bit of the rock. That's why the bone cutters are a big deal for mushrooms. Cutting some of the actual rock apart and then gluing that to some kind of frag plug. Or, hammer chisel.
Yep. Take out some anger.
Especially
God
when
they... Caesar.
Yeah, you get them in those big, thick rocks.
And that's another thing, too. When you are planning on fragging something, put it on, I know for us, like putting it on some sort of disc, or if you want it to look more natural, you can use, there's a whole bunch of different options, too. That's something that's easily cut.
As long as
you removed.
Think ahead of it.
You make sure the rock is light.
Yes.
Don't go putting it on your base.
Granite or something.
Oh, my gosh. A lot of that Marco rock, or I think I don't even know if is it real reef rock or whatever. That stuff you can't cut through with a bone cutter.
Real reef rock is like cement, legit.
Yeah, it is legit. That's what it's made out of. So
Portland cement.
Yep.
That's my guess.
So softies, basically scissors, eye protection, hand protection, glue.
Rinsing.
Cup.
Yep. All that kind of fun stuff. So LPS? Any other thoughts on softies?
Nope. Make sure you rinse it aggressively, like Jen said, after you're done fragging, because they will have a really gross slime coat that comes off.
So, do you ever do iodine for zoas?
Not.
I do.
Yes, I will, but not on the initial cut. I would follow up like a week later and do an iodine bacterial dip on them, just because on that initial cut, you already put them through a lot of stress. For the most part, the zoa themselves are already closed up. So yes, it will get a bacteria coat on there, but I want the zoa themselves to absorb more of that iodine.
Yeah.
My thought.
I do right away. But that's just, I guess it just depends if I'm cutting through a mat where it's not even close to, but if I'm cutting really tightly knit,
To the mouth.
yep, then to like the polyp, then I definitely do. But otherwise, if I'm not cutting through and I'm like, I did grandes, I mean, a lot of those you can peel the mats apart and just cut them off. There's really no need.
So here's something that I'm sure someone out there is thinking. Do you use freshly mixed salt water or do you use salt water from the tank that it's going in?
That's a good question.
Salt water from the tank.
Yep.
Don't even touch just the bacteria that are not in the fresh.
You can probably use clean water, like regular clean water, on things that are tough, like zoas,
Yes.
polys.
But not like, you just don't want to change water parameters when you're doing it for LPS and SPS.
Oh, no.
For the most part, when I think of fresh, right out of my mixing vat, I think of temperature cold.
Yep.
Probably not going to be 100% similar. It's going to be similar numbers, but not 100% the same.
But let's get this out there. Never, ever use RO.
No.
Yep.
So,
That's a big NO.
Yeah.
No? Oh.
Yeah.
Maybe
Sorry.
That's why my frags
That's
are
why
dying.
That's why they all turn white. When are the
Jesus.
colors going to come back? Oh my gosh.
They turn brown eventually, so.
Oh God. Yeah. And they grow a lot of hair. It's fantastic. No, I'm just
It's
kidding.
cool. It's called
Super
the,
hair.
it's called the Rasta SPS.
That's
Yeah.
not new growth.
No, sorry. Cindy. When they have hair, it doesn't equal good things.
Oh.
And when they turn all white, it doesn't matter. They're not coming back.
No, it's no es bueno.
Yeah.
I gotta check on those then.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe next time.
I think we need to hire a new SPS guy.
Yeah.
Job opportunity for anybody.
All right, LPS. Someone else take this one.
LPS. A lot of your similar setup for your leathers or softies that you're going to have is the individual containers, a bone cutter for sure. Not too terribly much will you use it. Every once in a while you'll stumble into where you're using bone cutter. But I think for LPS, main instrument is going to be a saw.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Because let's use an A-can, for example. You can't just go at it with a bone cutter because you're just going to crush the polyps and then there goes your sweet colony.
Yep.
You need to cut in between each little eye. So that's when people see those little A-can frags and you're like, oh, that's that for that much money. You're not seeing the time that's spent cutting each little eye.
They grow
out.
really fast too.
And they do.
If they're fed correctly and in a right tank.
And for those ones, I definitely dip in iodine right away.
Absolutely.
I think chalices. I know that Ted's Fuego chalice, which you guys will all see at MACNA. I don't know if this will air before them, but everybody was very, very eager to cut it, but nobody wanted to cut it.
I didn't want to cut it.
I didn't want to cut it.
Oh,
I didn't want to watch you cut it.
Yeah, so you didn't want to cut it?
No, like I didn't want to be the person to cut it.
So
no, but I didn't want you guys to cut it.
You just
I
wanted
grew
a
that
super
baby.
sweet colony out
yeah,
there.
and now I grew like 9 of them the same size in like
Pretty
3
much.
months. But
I was scared.
so
for
yeah,
his
so
life.
what happened? Ted had the day off, and I was like, "F it, I'm doing this."
Send it.
And Caesar was like, I can't watch this. Brendan's hiding under his desk. And everyone was like, what's Ted going to say? And I think you guys had texted him, warning him.
So Ted and I have been talking for the weeks leading up to that because I knew I kept telling him, we need to cut the chalice. We need to cut the chalice. And he's like, yes, but I don't want to cut it. So then when he was gone, I just asked you, I'm like, hey, Ted wants this cut. Can you just cut it for him?
This is true.
And then I said yes. And then he's like, wait, what? No. Like, are you sure? And then it's like, do you have all the things you need? He's like, I've never done it before. And so I mean, with chalices, it's a couple of different things. I mean, you need to have an eye. You can't just randomly cut through it. So you need to know where the eyes are. So there's certain types of chalices that have a lot of eyes that are really easily noticeable, and then there's certain ones that only have one or two. You can't just make 60 frags out of the one that only has 2 eyes, that you can only make 2. So I had to take this beautiful, colorful fuego. Is that the name of it?
Yep, Rainbow de Fuego.
Wait, Rainbow de Fuego chalice. And then I had to make, so then I wanted to make sure that we got specific cuts, but then also shapes, because they grow differently. If you have like weird angles, it takes them a lot longer to grow up and around than it actually does to grow flat.
I have a question. So what happens if the piece that you cut doesn't have an eye? It just dies, or
it does. Yep.
It does.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't have a mouth, so it
Can't eat or can't do anything.
Yeah.
Why?
So basically, it's like cutting your arm off, and then it's not going to grow a new human.
No. What? I'm learning a lot of stuff today.
I know. Oh my God! Another opportunity for a job here.
Oh man.
Damn.
Oh,
So if you're looking for employment, go to newwavecoordinator.com.
Yeah, there you
Yeah, /careers.
So next podcast I won't be around.
yeah.
It's been real, just not real
Yeah,
fun.
I'm glad that, and maybe we learned this now, so you don't try to cut your arm off,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
because it's
thanks.
not going to grow a new human. So there's that.
Caesar comes in tomorrow. His arm's gone. Yeah, so it turns out you guys are right.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to clone myself, and I didn't
Oh
work
my
out.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
No mini Caesars.
Yeah, but don't worry, we have iodine dip for the nub. And actually, they do use Lugol's.
Yep.
It is a thing. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's a hospital thing. So,
Yeah.
but don't try that, please.
Please
So, chalices.
do not do
I
that.
don't need
Are
this one. I
my-
got 2.
Yeah,
Oh, gosh.
chalices. I feel very confident doing them. So I felt it was a good fit. We had 100% success on it. And now we have these beautiful mini colonies.
They look so good.
They do. So, I mean, and I've actually, I fused chalices together. So I did a mummy and a Miami. 90% of the time that doesn't work. They do one of 2 things. They either will kind of, or one of 3 things. They'll kind of grow separately and make like a wall. They'll kill each other, or they'll fuse. And I got lucky because we have a ton of that. We have actually like a bare bottom tank that the whole like half of 180 gallon is Miami. So that was easy for me to try, but it made beautiful streaks. I know that we have a red tide chalice. I love chalices. So we have a red tide chalice that I've had on and off. I bank tanked it and I found it because we lost ours. So I found it like 6-8 months ago, and now we have it back. But I'm gonna cut that one eventually.
Sweet.
So
I think that's Jen and my secret. We
Yeah.
we both love chalices
Yep.
from get go. It's one
So-
of my favorites. Just the color and texture that you
Yeah.
get from them.
Yep.
The
And then-
hobby's starting to appreciate it a lot more now too. They're definitely growing in
Well,
popularity.
yeah, because you can. So when you see them, so that's where shape comes into. So let's be honest here. When you're cutting LPS, nobody wants a SpongeBob square frag.
No.
It looks hideous, and then so you want to give it some sort of
Yeah.
shape.
Yep.
So when you're cutting your A cans, if you're going to cut them to single polyps, that's fine. If you're going to do 2s and 3s, if you're looking to sell them, that's where you focus. Don't make a straight line with them. Just focus on where the lines are, and then kind of plan it out. So plan it out twice, cut once. I know that favias are another thing too. Making sure you have a nice flat surface so that when they do kind of encrust on things, instead of you want the most growth. And so if they have to grow up and over something or a bunch of glue, making sure that you don't have tons of glue all over everything, then you'll have much better success.
You'll get a little bit better reward out of the.
Yeah, you will. And it just makes your stuff more attractive.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, that's the name of the game.
It is.
making your
Because
coral
it's the
look pretty.
same. Yeah, a favia, if we all have the same favia, I'm going to pick the one that looks nicer, or that has more mouths, or that grew and whatever.
Yep.
So, those are a little bit of tricks of the trade because I've been fragging for, I don't know, a long time.
2 years.
Yep.
Yeah, 2. This is my second time. So I feel like I'm an expert now. But I think Ted hit, you absolutely need to use a saw.
Yeah.
I've done chalices with the bone cutters back in the day, and you literally just shatter them there, and then you end up that you
fragile.
should. Then I call it getting greedy when you try to get like an extra mouth, and then you end up killing like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So don't get greedy.
Even on euphilia with the bone cutter or
Nope, it
anything, it's just going to
crushes.
crush instead of giving you a clean.
And
crisp
euphilia
line.
is one of those things that you can, if you're not cutting through tissue, you can cut it, put it on a plate, plug and it's ready to go.
Yep.
Because you're not cutting through any tissue.
As long as it's branching.
Branching, yeah.
Good,
but that's what,
good catch.
Because hammers, like the wall hammers, those.
But then I wouldn't recommend fragging them anyway. But then you're cutting through tissue.
That's one of those yet again. It can be fragged. Leave it for the experts.
Yep, because it does need to have that mouth.
Yep, it needs some treatment after it's done fragging.
And treatment.
Yeah, you're not just gonna cut your wall and then go, "Hey, millions of frag, let's send it." No.
Another one that that plate corals too. I wouldn't recommend fragging them for several reasons. They're kind of touchy. And two, I'm gonna go with shape here again. Yeah, I mean, you get like this half moon. It looks
weird.
It looks stupid forever.
Yep. It takes a long time to give you that perfect disc.
Yeah. So, I mean, you want to make that extra $15. No, just keep your nice, because people come in and like, oh, I have this sweet plate coral. Can I cut it in like 5 pieces? I'm like, sure. And then in,
20 years.
Yeah, in 20 years, I'll buy them back from you, But until then, good luck. So, then it's too, is like if you're actually looking to make some money, you got to stick with there are some classics that'll never ever go away for fragging things. I know there's certain chalices, there are certain favias. I know like Favia of the Gods is a big deal. Yellow submarines, those beautiful colored ones. I mean, those ones are good investments if you're looking at actually growing them and fragging them. Christmas favias, and Christmas comes every year. So, there's lots of them. War corals, there's lots of them.
So chalices, do they actually encrust or do they grow plate?
Both.
It depends on the chalice. There's quite a few different.
That's true, actually. Like the
different
Methidiums.
subspecies of them. So each one is going to do different things.
Because I wasn't into chalices before because I was assuming that they only encrust.
Nope.
But now that I'm in this business, I've seen like plates.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a client that I take care of the fish tank, and it looks like Monty plates.
Yep.
So I have them juxtaposed, so it looks like a big Monty plate of a golden eye and a big Monty plate of the Miami.
So
Hurricane.
Now I have like chalices in places where my SPS don't have enough light. There's lower light, so I put them there.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then you get those colors. Sometimes you can get colors that you can't get, the oranges and other things that you can only get with non-photosynthetic, and you don't want. But so you get those colors that juxtapose each other. It's awesome.
Yeah. I'm just hoping they played out because it'd be sweet.
It just depends, like Ted is saying. Sorry.
Minus a beard.
Yeah. And a whole bunch of other things. But yeah, so it just gives a bunch of colors that you want.
Cool.
Other LPS that you can frag. We talked about A-cans.
a lot of it's in the encrusting, like leptos and
Astrias.
Lepto is an SPS, isn't it?
Technically, but I
think Caremore is
that's his
LPS.
coral.
Grows more like a favia, I would say.
Yep.
Now that one is encrusting a whole way around.
Yes.
There are branching versions of Lepto, but yes, for the most part, it's
I
encrusting.
just paint my rock orange or green, and that's it.
Pretty much. Just with spray paint, right? Just set her in there.
So I was taking over this client's tank. Actually, it was for one of the Minnesota Wild players. And I was taking over his tank, and I got there, and you're drinking this Mountain Dew. So I got there, and his tank literally was Mountain Dew yellow. Like,
that's
terrible. And they had another maintenance company, and I'm like, what's going on here? I mean, you have, I don't know, like 87 full-size female clownfish that are all killing each other. You have 16 dying anemones, and your tank looks like Mountain Dew. And he told me that his current maintenance guy told him that the only way to get crystal clear blue water is to put food coloring in your tank.
Oh my God.
And that he didn't want to do that. And so this player was like, well, I don't want to put food coloring in my tank. And I'm like, I'm not going to put food coloring. I'm going to throw a little carbon. And then I started doing a water change. He's like, whoa, what are you doing? I'm like, water change? He's like, oh, I've never seen that done. I'm like, yeah, I know. You have Mountain Dew water.
I can tell.
Yeah. So, I mean, and so we turned that all around. But good Lord, I mean, so, don't put food coloring or paint your rocks.
If your tank looks like that.
This guy that told him that shouldn't be in business.
You can invest with us at New Wave Aquaria /maintenance.
Seriously.
Yeah.
JenComeFixMyProblems.com.
For all your built-in necessities.
And we
Yes.
also will send Caesar out for certain people.
Yep. There you go.
For the special treatment.
You just had to drop that in.
Absolutely.
So yeah, he was super confused. And then, so not only did we over time, then we had all these beautiful corals that we had to frag. And then that was like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm cutting the corals because they're growing together and this and that. So he got really into it and very intrigued.
That's awesome.
But yeah, starting with Mountain Dew Yellow, I've never heard of that. I've heard a lot of things in the last almost 3 decades. Never Mountain Dew and food coloring.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
So anyway.
Not expecting that one. But.
So
And I have to say, in my mind, I'm trying to think of how you would even get it dyed blue again after it's bright orange green color.
He just basically told him that there's a special product that to do it, but it's harmful for your fish and corals. And like this said special product was a water change, which apparently this maintenance guy was allergic to. And it was
allergic to work.
It was awful. And then you should have seen the lighting on it too. It had back in the day, it had power compacts, and then it had some like low light LEDs, like from like a freshwater LED, and it had all these other things. And I'm just like, I have to come in and just be the bearer of bad news and be like, this is hot garbage, and we need to start over.
See, I wonder if that whole thing about not doing water changes came from. I know there was a boom of it when certain companies started talking about no water changes.
Well, I think people get lazy. And so they're like, well, yeah, I'm going to go with the no water changes and just add a bunch of chemicals. But I mean, realistically, in my mind, I'm thinking, how do I add a chemical to make my water cleaner?
Well, the problem is that it can be done, but
Right.
you have to be on top of it.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like the no water change, yes, it's easier work, but also harder work because you have to do a lot more to make sure
every
that
single
it's
day.
A-okay.
Yeah. So it's monitoring.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to fragging. Because the point was we grow lots of corals and we eventually have to cut them out.
Yeah.
So
That's the thing.
I guess be careful with your branching LPS too. Don't cut that branch too close to the head. Otherwise, you're
head,
going to cut into tissue and that thing's going to go bye-bye.
yeah, so torches have become ever so increasingly popular since Indo closed the first time, and now they have all these different colors from all over. So a lot of times people will cut right through that torch head, or if it's almost dividing into two.
Try to get
I
that.
always say wait, because
wait,
you cut through that and you end up killing both.
Yep. I think universally we all agree with that one is with that half a head or that in between there. Don't go if it's a torch Euphilia, any of those guys do not cut through the flesh. You're pretty much signing it up for death.
Yep.
And for the people, just putting this out there, for the people that like torches and they having issues with it, I've noticed in my tank, the torches that I have, they do like phosphates. So don't be afraid of keeping it just a little bit higher. Don't, go striving for 0.03 because that's a good acro tank. But if you have a mixed reef, definitely.
Yeah, and if you've seen like some of the torches, like the flesh on your torches, and also like
they go all the way down to
the density too. So when you're
Higher
buying
calcium.
torches, make sure that that it's not just the tip that has flesh on it. Okay, that
Just
anyway.
the tip.
Giggity.
Yeah. So yeah, make sure there's flesh all the way down or something. So I'm done now.
Either way, it doesn't sound good. But
Yeah.
yes, make sure that when you are viewing to do that. What about? Did we cover all the LPSs?
For the most part.
The majority of them.
I mean, Cyphastria, stuff like that will be similar to other
Similar.
encrusting corals. And
Where you just kind of have to be mindful of your original shape. Yet again, you don't want this goofy little cutting on your frag plug or anything like that. You want to make it look nice so that when it grows into it, it grows
And
nicely.
then too, when you are cutting it, I think having a flat wherever it goes onto your plug, making sure it's a flat surface and
Yep.
it doesn't have to grow down or up and over. I know I've said it like 5 times, but literally it takes forever for it to do that. And I think that's also important. And when we talk about acros too, making sure that the glue doesn't get all over.
Yep.
You don't have a frag plug with glue and an acro accent. That's not. I've seen that where it's like you have a mound of glue, and then somewhere in there's an acro.
Didn't we get a couple of frags?
Yep.
And
oh my gosh!
It looks like somebody like literally did one of the big bottles of glue, and they gave you 4 plugs, and the glue bottle is done.
Oh,
You're like,
I wish I
what
would have
happened. Like it's like this big and that much coral.
I know, and it looks absolutely terrible. And then plus, your coral has to grow up and over, and it takes forever. And a lot of times, it just ends up damaging it anyway. So I think we can dive into SPS because
before we move on.
Oh,
your favorite one. Ghanies and Albies.
Oh, there you go. Forgot about that.
I hope we were just going to avoid that conversation.
So this is one of those that either A, I have to cut it, or B, I don't really have a good secret for this one. I truly believe, I know Albies are easier in my opinion.
I've had a lot better success with Albies than Ghanies.
And it just depends on what the shape is. A lot of times they'll be, if they're branching, obviously that's way easier. If they're one solid ball, like I know wild caught Ghanies, I just refuse to frag because they just melt. Yep. So what happens is you do have to, just like all the other LPS, you have to follow that mouth line. But the problem is it's super, super close. Mm-hmm. So what you end up doing is damaging the mouths on both sides. So then you get the tissue recession on both ends.
Yeah, but doesn't it make sense that if they're so close together, even if you did a straight cut and you wouldn't, why doesn't only the damaged mouth?
Well, the problem it does, but it seems like that flesh just keeps rolling to the next layer, to the next level, to the next level.
But would that be linked to maybe a bacterial infection?
Yeah, and it could. But again, with Ghanies, like again, it seems like the more expensive ones, you look at them wrong and they die. So I know we have some really beautiful red ones. We have the fused one. We have a lot of beautiful ones. And to be honest with you, I'm hesitant at times because I've had mixed success. I think once Ghanies become fully photosynthetic, I feel like some of them just aren't. And so you do that and then they stop eating and then they just kind of disintegrate. Once they are fully we have that ORA purple Alveopora that we've had for years and years and years. That stuff grows like a weed. You could cut individual polyps on that, but it is fully photosynthetic. So, I mean, if you're getting wild caught ones or you're getting ones that are maricultured, you have to make sure first before you cut them that they're actually showing full polyp extinction and all that. Because you can cut them into a million pieces and then they just get an algae layer and die.
So basically, buy a Ghani, keep it for as long as you can.
Yeah.
And then
I think she nailed it on it with getting the wild caught in comparison to the either in tank raised or has been in the hobby for a really long time, because bacterial infections are a thing, and also just ocean has completely different life of nano stuff than what we have to offer in aquarium world. And I think it really is one of those that we as aquarists haven't hit on to what is the appropriate food source for them.
But I think that ties into the fact that we sometimes make the mistake of viewing what we have comparing to the ocean. We are not trying to keep a piece of the ocean. The ocean is the ocean. You're never going to mimic that. So we're trying to keep a box with animals in it the best we can. And that's how you need to look at it. Not as like, I got to match the ocean. No, you'd never do that.
Right.
Yep.
But I think so. I think too is also viewing some of the pieces that you buy are for your enjoyment, and you don't have to cut everything.
Yep.
I mean, there are certain things. Yes, if it overgrows, that's one thing. But I think that is also an important point to make too. Make sure that the corals and the pieces that you're cutting, especially with acros, give them some time to heal, to grow. I mean, over time you'll get way more cuts out of them if you know what I mean. If you have a whole bunch of branches and you just take tip here and there. Then if you have like 2 little nubs, you're like, now I'm going to make 10 of them. I mean, it just let your stuff rest for a minute.
That's a problem with SPS.
And that's what we do when we get stuff in. We have to condition our corals before we ever cut them. So generally speaking, when we bring them in, they go into a separate holding tank where we condition them, watch them, make sure that there are no infections, treat them if needed, make sure there's no pests, and then we do it. And then too, for our display tanks, it's kind of like overbreeding of dogs or cats or any other animal. Like, you cut from it and then let it set for a long time. So people are like, when are you going to frag that next? It's like, well, we do this either, quarterly or, whenever it grows, sometimes it grows faster than other times. And so give it some time.
Well, like sometimes I go on the forums and I see someone selling a really nice piece, a really nice frag. I'm like, okay. And then they say, show me your colony. Their colony is literally a frag with 2 pieces like this.
Yep.
That's their colony.
Yep.
I'm like, you're cutting that already? It's like, ugh.
Well, a lot of times we're just trying to recoup some of the funds for those crazy. In SPS, I would say that's more realistic than a lot more of your LPS ones, where a Zoa is the only one I can think that would be equivalent to how quickly SPS would grow, where you splurge and buy that one Zoa that's a little bit might be out of our budget, and we're like, all right, we got another polyp now. I can sell that one polyp and make some more money.
But what you don't realize is one polyp becomes 2, and then 2 become 4, and 4 become 8, and so now if you just let it get to 8, now you have 7 to sell instead of just 1, and then you have to do 1 to 1, whatever.
Well, yeah, but with SPS, it depends on which type.
It's true.
There's slow growers that are beautiful, but they grow
so slow, and it seems like they know they're beautiful. They're like, oh, I'm too beautiful to grow today. I'm not gonna grow.
I think they even do it with their colors too, where they're just like, one day everything's perfect, one day they look great, tomorrow it's like, oh,
I always
my phosphates went down by 0.1.
I'm dying.
I can't handle it.
Yep.
It's like, oh yeah, you move me from here to here.
Yep.
Bye.
I'm done. Yeah.
It's over. It's been real. Just not real.
Seriously,
fun.
and it takes I always say it takes months or even years to establish colonies and minutes to destroy them. I mean, but that I feel is why we are all in this hobby, is to master something that isn't necessarily masterable. And so I think that's what, oh dear. Really?
I'm sorry. I have a child mind.
Yeah. Or something. But we want that challenge. So I think then when we do the softies, we master that. Then we have our LPS and we fill those in and they're slower growing. And then we're like, oh, I want to try something else, try something a little more challenging. And I mean, once you get the hang of SPS, I think sometimes SPS is easier than torches or, other problems that we have. But
once your tank established, it's easy to keep acros.
Yeah. And then you get those colors, those pastels, if you keep your water parameters nice, but you get those colors and that true reformation that gives that complete look.
And that's the thing. You got to let the colony grow to a size where it actually looks like a reef.
Yeah.
Before you go start hacking it. So getting into SPS stuff, what are your guys' tools? Oh, the trade for that. Are you a saw, bone cutter?
Both.
Yep, I would agree. I think to actually remove parts of, sometimes to get, especially for tabling, I like to take and find a natural break in the colony, and then I take my bone cutter, because then what it does is it'll split naturally, and then I can take my frag cuts from that. I think the one way that you have the ultimate success and the fastest growth, though, especially with tabling corals, or you look at how they naturally grow and then cut them at an angle, put them on the plug on to mimic that natural growth. Because if you look at it, table corals don't grow straight up. No. So if you take a table coral and you glue it to your frag plug, it's going to take forever, because what it's going to have to do now is encrust and then try to grow outwards how it wanted to originally. Plus, and you can glue it to the frag plug like that if you want to, but then you have to angle the frag plug when you put it into your aquarium.
I've noticed that with tenuouses too, and just like your regular acros, mounting them at that slight angle just gets some better growth, because you're like you said, they got to encrust and then they have to shoot out the branches to really capture all the light. So
because that's what corals do in the very beginning. They have to establish their spot. So that's what they'll start encrusting first. Before they grow out. And so that's in the wild. I've been to all these places where they, the colonies will get huge until another colony, they can grow to the area, and then the other colony gets in their way, and then that's when they fight. So that's what they're trying to do. So they spend all their energy doing those things. So because it's a stick, it doesn't go straight up, just so you know.
Not usually like that.
Yeah, a slight bend.
So
Mr. soon-to-be ex-SPS expert for
yeah,
New
right?
Aquaria, what's your process like for putting the hands in the SPS grow out and taking some frags?
Got him.
Oh, shit. What do I say now?
Pressure's on.
I feel like he maybe have like a little helper that comes in and does it, and then he just kind of like looks busy.
Yeah.
Ish.
I think that helper's me. No.
Yeah.
The process, if you can take the colony out, you take the colony out. You use your saw so you can get straight cuts. If you can't, for example, in my reef, I use the bone cutters and I cut whatever piece I need to put in a plug, and then make a smooth cut on the saw so it's flat, so I can put it on the frag plug.
And then I think it's important for SPS and maybe LPS too. Well, actually, all of it. When you make your cut, to put it back into the flow, into lighting parameters, that if you want to keep that color.
Yeah, so I do have a frag rack that's it's about level with where the most of the SPS are, so I can keep it on that spot so it doesn't change. Because I have an 80-gallon frag tank. The problem is moving it, even though it's the same water, it does affect the coloration.
Absolutely.
And then, if you want to do that, you can, but it's probably going to take, I don't know, a week or two maybe to go back to what it was. So I just rather keep them on that frag rack, and then when they're ready to come out, just straight out.
Yep. And then I think another important part of, well, now I lost my train of thought actually. So there were lots of important parts, but someone else has one.
I was thinking back to, what you mentioned earlier with the glue, like don't put too much glue on the frag plug. I know that's one of your big pet peeves too.
It is. And when I see that, it looks absolutely terrible. And that's why I do what I do. So when I do my sticks, I will cut them at their angle. So let's use some slimy ones, for example, blue slimers, green slimers, there's some other ones. So yes, they are slimy. So I always have a dry towel next to me. Mm-hmm. And so I take my frag plug, I put my glue on my dry frag plug. I put my glue on there. I put my frag plugs then into salt water.
So it's not really dry.
No, but it has the glue on it now. And so it makes the skin
in there.
I let them sit it doesn't matter. You can let them sit 5-10 minutes. And then I have all my frags. So what I do when I'm cutting mass, I just cut them all and then have them all ready. So then I take each individual piece and I will dab the end of it to dry the end off of that slimy part, because otherwise it just slides off and it's frustrating. And I've been using gloves that are way too big, so then I end up gluing my glove, and then you see parts of the glove, and so it's ridiculous. So literally you can. Bird's nests suck to frag too. They make me so mad. Yep. So unless you're using Instaset, which is each individual time, but otherwise I just take it, I dry the end off, and as long as it's smooth, it sets right on there, and there's generally no extra glue that's exposed, ideally. So, I mean, bird's nests are a little bit different, but bird's nests don't do a lot of encrusting. Nope. So same with anacroporas and other things. So those ones are a little bit different, but that's how I do it. That's a trick of the trade.
What I do is I have 2 containers. I cut them, I glue them on the first one, and then I just move the frag rack on the other container and let them sit there while I cut something else, and that way they set. Then I put them in. There they go.
And do you use Instaset on most of your frags?
No, not really. If I have to, what I do, lately I've been doing, instead of spraying, I grab a dropper and I put a little drop right on the glue.
Oh, that's good. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Huh.
Instead of a spray, and then that'll set it right away.
The only time I really use Instaset, I mean, I use it for like if I'm gluing rocks and stuff together, but I like the smell of it.
Yeah,
it actually has like some like rose.
Strawberry.
It's strawberry. Yeah. They put that in there.
I didn't know that until
Caesar didn't believe me when I told him that.
It is true. So I'm like, I'm feeling like it's not like I huff it, you know what I mean? But I'm like, this smells pretty good.
Goes in the garage, just starts smelling bottles.
All of a sudden, no, I'm like,
well, no, I was going to say now it's going to be Instaset for men.
Please don't spray that on you. It's not good for your skin.
Yeah, if there's an Instaset for men, that sounds fantastic.
They should make a candle, Instaset candle.
Yeah, they should. And for the record, guys, do not spray that on yourself. It will.
It burns. That is important to know too. If you have glue on your hand and you spray and you get it heats up. It heats. It's bad. I didn't know that.
Like I've had to strip a few gloves real quick. Like, why is my hand getting it? What is happening here?
Yesterday too, speaking of having gloves that are too big, yesterday I'm using your guys' gloves. So I mean, I look like, a kid wearing their mom's gloves. And so I'm fragging and I'm not realizing, because my glove now has gone through my frag saw, and all of a sudden You can see my thumb here. So yeah, you can cut yourself on a frag saw.
There's another fun fact. When you're using GFO and you put it in a bag, a media bag, and you're rinsing it,
It's hot.
it gets hot.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, and I really think that when you are rinsing it, you should stand away from it because I think
That
inhaling
powder.
that powder over time, I think is bad
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah, so is smoking.
There's a lot of things.
I know. All right. Well, we're almost at our hour mark. So do we want to kind of conclude?
I would say we mentioned this a few times, but just put the frags near where you took the mother from, or the father, however you want to look at it. But yeah, put them in the same general area.
Pa.
Yeah, lighting and flow wise, they'll do better in the long run doing that. You'll see a lot better heal time, and money is time, so you'll be able to sell them quicker.
Do you think that we should have because I've done some videos too for tips and tricks on fragging. Do you think it would be advantageous to put that on the
Yes.
site
Yeah.
of different? I mean, because
I think
it's
people wanna know.
I mean, there's no school I went to cut corals, and you learn from other people. So I think it's a big deal.
It's called the School of Hard Knots.
Maybe I should put we should do a school.
Well, we could
new
we
wave
do a
school.
live and how to frag and what to, cutting
can, yeah.
individuals. That'd be awesome.
We should do a fragging class though. That
Yeah.
would be cool.
All right.
People
Let's.
in.
Guys, let us know if you would be interested in a fragging class. Let's
Fragging?
start at that.
Yeah, fragging class and then also aquascaping because
Mm-hmm.
then we could do the different glues and stuff too.
Well, I don't know if we want to give away all the aquascaping
That's fair.
secrets
That's
because then
true.
they wouldn't hire us out to come out. And look at
I
their
always say
tank.
people pay me tens of dollars to aquascape their tank.
I thought we established Tonga Branch is the secret.
yeah.
We should do a Q&A.
Yeah, that
Not only in the podcast, but have people
Like
come
a
in
live
and
one.
just like live and be like,
Yeah,
you
that
know,
would be
they
actually
can
a
ask
really good
questions
idea.
and-
We
I
could
think-
even probably do a live podcast Q&A.
yeah. I wonder if we do that on a weekly basis or
People
whatnot.
get intrigued, I bet.
I mean, at least 3 people would. I mean, otherwise I'd have to find some people.
1, 2, 3.
Well, after they saw the first video with Caesar, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Let it go.
Balls down. I mean, hands down. Hands down.
Man.
I gotta see this in person.
Let's find out now.
Yeah. I have a question, but I can only ask it if Caesar's standing.
Yep. I need Caesar. I need you.
Caesar's waiting for us to wrap up.
Yeah.
He's like, guys,
Just
we're
get
talking
this
about fragging here, right?
Yeah. Or something.
I thought it was propagating.
Yeah. And Caesar's having another little one come pretty quick here. He
Oh,
he
yeah.
fragged
When
his.
is it?
October 27th.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's real soonish.
I know. Number 3.
Yep. I like to propagate.
I like to move it, move it.
Oh, God.
I like to move it, move it.
Unbelievable.
So on that note,
Yeah.
make sure that if you do have any questions, comments, concerns, you can find us at
newwaveaquaria.com/podcast.
Yep. And also make sure you subscribe there as Waldo. And take a look at us
That's
on
fantastic.
Facebook too. I do lives all the time showing off all the goodies at the shop. And, sometimes we do maintenance stuff where we show off some builds, show off some things that we've come across in our time.
Yep. And that is us. New Wave After Dark.
Bum, bum, bum. And this is Senor, the ex-SPS guy.
Yeah. I will not see you in the next one.
It's been real,
Now
That's
accepting
been real.
applications.
Yeah.
but for
And
real.
you'll see Caesar outside with a sign that
Yep.
says we'll work for food. All right. We're out.
Have a good one, guys.
I'm
Thank you,
just gonna
guys.
quit.